Hi, and welcome to our latest Redmond reviews with Michael Redmond. I'm Chris Garlock, the managing editor of the AGA E-Journal, and with me, of course, Michael Redmond himself. Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
Ready to dive in once again?
Yeah, I'm ready to start talking about Go.
Okay, I know it's early in the morning there in Tokyo, so all right. What have we got today?
We have a game between Tan Xiao, who's one of the top Chinese players, and Master is Black. And in this game, Master, again, it's one of those games where Master sort of dominates the center in the fighting of the game. So it's a kind of a moyo position that develops in the middle game. But it's also interesting in that it plays a peep that is usually considered to be bad. And so it's another of those no moves that Master does, and it works for Master.
Just upending hundreds of years of go lessons.
Yeah. Well, there's a few cases where a human pro has played this move, but it's usually considered not to be so good. So I'll be talking about that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's get started.
All right. So Tan Xiao is one of the top Chinese players. So I've seen him in recent years. And this is a kind of an unusual opening in that White has started out sort of mimicking Black. And it's something that people do sometimes just to start with a kind of a balanced position. And maybe to avoid the opponent's favorite opening sometimes. And we can see that pretty soon at this point, White's already stopped copying Black. So it's not as if White wants to actually... mimicking the opponent is playing manego, that's the Japanese word, is something that might be coming up when we go to China, because Koje is saying that he has a secret plan. And it has been considered that playing manego with White actually is, if Black allows White to play manego throughout the game, to mimic Black throughout the game, then the komi will be difficult for Black to give.
Interesting.
To overcome. So in human Go, of course, people have strategies that involve ladders. Because you can easily, when White copies Black, there's no stone in the center of the board. So it's exactly the same. You can set up ladders in diagonal positions that head towards each other, in which case Black is always going to win.
Right.
And so the moment Black starts setting up a ladder position, White has to stop copying Black.
So Manego is also in English known as mirror Go, because you're mirroring your opponent's moves. I don't think in any of the 60 games anybody actually did a straight up mirror game, did they?
Well, there was a player who tried to do it with Black, which was a bad idea. He was one of the most famous Taiwanese players. He was a world-class player in his prime. Now he's more of a teacher for the younger players, I think, but he's still a strong player. And he played the Tengen and then played manego, which of course is a bad idea when you're giving 6.5 points komi.
Right.
I think it was 6.5. Yeah. So in any case, like if you play the Tengen and then you play manego with Black, if it goes well, you can expect to win by something like 3 points. That's my opinion anyway. Yeah. And it happened in previously in Japan. There was a period when it happened when they didn't have komi, and so it was gonna work. So White had to do something fancy to try to change that.
Right.
But of course, it's not really all that interesting as a game.
No,
so it's not a popular strategy.
It's really boring. Don't try this at home. All right. So what happens in this game?
So in a human game, you don't really expect White to, but it's something that, since humans have a strategy of using a ladder to refute that, there is the question: is the deep learning process providing that for a computer, for an AI? And so maybe it doesn't have that little strategy there. So that's something that it would be interesting, sort of as a test of AlphaGo. It would be interesting
just to see.
But I would rather they did it sort of offline or somewhere
where nobody's looking.
So I'm sort of hoping they don't do that, but that could be one thing that Kache might be trying in China. Okay, back to the game. We have Black making a pincer here. And okay, what I'm talking about here is this peep here that black played, and this is the game sequence. This peep at the 5-5 point is supposed to be a bad move, and the reason is that it reduces the value of black jumping into the corner. So first of all, I'm going to go into that. When after white connects, obviously black's not going to do this right now. But when black does decide he has to switch to the corner at some point, we can expect something like this. In which case we see a marked exchange there, which is really, really bad for black. Like black, it's as if black played a misclick there.
Yeah.
Just allowing white to connect it makes it easier for white to kill the corner.
Yep.
And it loses pushing through and cutting. So this exchange here is really terrible for black. So this is something that is just jumping into the corner like this is no longer an option for black. And that means that black has to basically, if black cannot move from this stone, if black wants to sacrifice this stone, black has really no option here. All black can do, if black wants to sacrifice the marked stone here, black's choice would be to jump into the 3-3 point. So if the 3-3 point is a bad move, then black basically is committed to save this stone. So it makes, what professionals would say is that it makes it heavy. It makes it impossible, basically, for black to throw away that stone. So usually, the moment black does this, you see in a human game, you would see black playing something like this to continue, so as to make this. And if white answers like this, then it's sort of arguable that maybe this is actually a good exchange for black. This exchange here, it's hard to say, but there is some positive. The positive effect is maybe bigger than the negative effect now.
It still looks kind of odd, though, right?
It's kind of odd, but of course, white connecting is a unnecessary move also. So it's maybe a forcing move from the outside. Although black still is losing something on the left side here, losing potential on the left side. When black plays from the left side, it's potentially going to be a bad exchange, but it does give black some extra influence on the outside. So in some cases, this would be good. So this is the way you see it played by some human players. But that's not the way AlphaGo used it. So I'm going to back up a few moves here because this is not the only game in which Master played this move in exactly the same position. This was a game against a young Korean player, Shin Jin-sao.
Okay.
Shin Jin-sao. Well, I'm not pronouncing it right anyway, but a young Korean player, very promising. I think he's somewhere around 5-dan, maybe a bit stronger. He's a strong player in any case. And they started out with this opening. And I think the idea with black playing this peep at the 5-5 point is just to get a little extra power in a future fight on the lower side. So somehow black's going to try to fight strongly. And this is in this game, this is a different game I'm talking about right now, but just to dip into it a little bit. At this point, if white had played here, I think it would have been about even. Like this would give white a living shape. White tried something fancy here, and it just didn't really work out. Like black extended, and we can see that white can't cut on the second line yet because white has a weak shape, so white plays here. And this happened. And this was a really neat move. It was a very efficient move because without this move, if black plays elsewhere, let's just put a new variation in here. If black plays elsewhere, white can cut and extend here. So black has to deal with that somehow. And with this move, black gets rid of that. Now white's going to lose the semi here, just because black has that extra stone there. And so this was a very efficient way of handling that weakness. And the game continues with white extending on the side. And again, Master plays its favorite move, pressing on the 5th line. And we have this huge moyo, and there's no cut at A. And the stones in the lower left area, they're kind of locally they're a liability for black. But with the huge moyo in the upper right, white's not going to have a good chance to attack those stones. It's just not enough space in the lower left for white. Even if white goes after those stones, it'll be a trade because black will continue to surround the center. So white has to move towards the upper right area now, and so white's going to get into a lot of trouble. Black gets to attack. So this was the other game in which Master played it, and you can see that Master isn't really worrying about those stones in the lower left. Black is just leaving them alone, sort of like a lure in fishing, like go ahead and take them. And white just doesn't have time to do that. And it's interesting because this is one of 2 games where Master played that peep in exactly the same position, and Master used that peep in exactly the same way in this game I'm going to look into today. So it's interesting that while a human would be thinking about how to make this peep work by maybe sliding here, right? That's what the human would be thinking.
Absolutely.
Master is actually playing the peep and then just leaving it for white to attack. So it's a completely different approach. We can see that the timing of this peep was 1 move away in this game, so it was slightly different. Talking about white 10 here, just for a moment. This is the popular move nowadays. It's sort of in the fad. When I was a young pro, people didn't do this move. Like this was the joseki. And black would usually answer here, and then white would come in. And people would think that since white has a strong position in the lower left, this is a fight that would be good for white. And I don't really know why people stopped playing this. I don't really have a theory about that because I still think it looks playable for white.
You've talked before, though, about fads, and it could be as simple as that it was something that just sort of fell out of favor, right? I mean, it might not have been disproven. It just people might have moved on, right?
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Because I think actually in this position, this would be it still looks pretty normal.
Sure.
It's just that people they don't like to give the opponent territory first. It's something that people, professionals especially, sort of have a dislike of. So they're sort of trying to be more territory oriented for white here. So this is the popular move, and Master now plays the peep. So the timing of this peep was 1 move off, and now Master, instead of jumping into 3-3 is bad. So this is the human move. Master instead plays here, switching to the lower right here. And it looks like Master, like if white plays something like this, Master is probably just planning to throw away that area. In which case, I would say the peep at the 5-5 point looks like a bad exchange. But it seems to be okay for Master. So this is something I don't completely understand yet. So at this point, this is kind of a key point in the game, because I think this is a point where white played here to connect underneath. I've actually seen this exact same move locally in professional games, so it's obviously something that people think is going to work, but I don't like it.
Because?
And I'm going to get into that. Well, okay. I think that white should actually, it's going to turn bad in the game. You'll see that happening. Okay. So I'm going to make my suggestion first. I'm going to say that white should probably play here to make miai of the left and the right side. And so if black plays here, white can play something like this. Now white's going to be fighting aggressively on the right. Like if black continues with something like this, white's going to be able to surround that stone. So it's relatively locally, it's a pretty difficult fight for black because black wants to play on both the left and the right side. And since white is sort of out into the center on both sides of black, white doesn't have to worry about connecting underneath right now. Like if black moves out here, white's going to just continue on this side, starting to put pressure on the corner. And white doesn't really have to connect until some point fairly far in the future. Not quite yet. And so there's a lot more room for white to be aggressive here. Otherwise, like if black doesn't do that, sorry, I'm getting back to the game. So just to go back a few moves again. So when white plays here, maybe black's gonna play. If black plays on this side, now the lower right area is starting to look like a black territory. But of course, white has something that's going to look like a big territory too. Like if black plays at A, white's going to. Why don't we just put those stones down? If we have something like this, Actually, white's territory in the lower left area looks a bit better than black's territory to me. It's more strength towards the center, while there's a little bit of bad oddsy for black in the lower right. So I think this would be about even, since black does have the initiative here. So I would suggest either this move. I was also thinking of another move here, which I have a variation for, this one. This is also feasible. Like if black is going to run away with this group, then it means white's going to be on the offensive. Maybe black would play here, but then white would just be able to connect underneath. So I'm sort of split between these two variations here. Maybe this is less dangerous for white. Maybe I'd choose this one right now. So it sort of depends on my mood. But I don't like playing here immediately, because when white does this, white's sort of forced to be on the defensive here.
Yeah, it looks tricky.
Well, black covers. It's easy for black in this position, because black can cover. Black doesn't really have to save all his stones. Black is willing to make some kind of a trade. So like a weaker player would be really upset at this point, maybe because that player might be trying to save both of the black stones.
No.
But it's important to remember that the stone towards the center is generally more important. So black wants to save the stone towards the center. And if white does something like this, then white's very, very low. Like black has forcing moves like this later on. And white's sort of forced down to the second line. So black would be happy with this kind of thing. So instead, white plays a very strong move here. But you can see, like, if white plays something on this side, then black's going to break through here. And this kind of trade would be just great for black. So this is an example of how black can sacrifice the one stone to get a profit here.
Right.
And obviously, the stone that black wants to sacrifice is the one close to the edge of the board. Like, black wants to save these stones towards the center, because those are the ones that have a future. Do you think you need a variation of a bad example for black?
Yeah, I was just thinking it would be useful to show that. And I think...
I'll give you the bad example then. If black feels he has to save this stone on the side, he would probably be doing stuff like this.
Right.
And like this, and connecting underneath. And then black would still have to worry about the cut here, and it would probably be a lot of trouble.
Ouch.
And of course, white's getting a lot of thickness on the outside anyway. So black's not really gaining anything here. So this is an example of what black should not do. So black plays towards the center. And this kind of thing, or this kind of thing, would just be, especially, well, this was something that would locally work for white, but it would be a very painful low position already.
The second line.
Yeah. So white plays strongly here. So in this case, if black is going to do something like this and go after the one stone, now you can see that although white's down on the second line on the right side here, white's up on the fourth line on the left side. So white, among the variations in which white has to connect underneath, this is the best for white. White has a very good position towards the left, and still has some potential to cut black off. Like later on, let's just add a few moves to this variation. White can still, later on, think of doing stuff like this to attack the blob of black stones there. And again, when people talk about ponukis, the capturing one stone, it's supposed to, they say the ponuki is worth 30 points, but it's not worth 30 points when you have this extra stone here, which I'm about to mark. This extra stone really wastes it. Like the whole point of the ponuki is that you're capturing one stones with 4 stones, so you've sort of got one extra stone free. Whereas this is a wasted stone for black, so it's sort of already wasted the one stone that black got.
Right.
So this is not an efficient shape. Like if black did not have that marked stone, it would be a relatively efficient shape. If black didn't have that stone, it would be somewhere else on the board, right?
Ponuki is not always a ponuki.
Yeah, so that's not a valid ponuki. So black's not going to do that variation. Black goes straight down. Actually, this move in itself is not bad, so I've marked it here. Black could have played that Atari first.
Okay.
And humans like to play Atari. I remember when I was a kid and I was playing Go, there were people who would say Atari just because they were so happy to play it.
I might have done that a time or two back in the day.
And then I came to Japan and I learned you didn't have to say it.
Right.
But people just like to play Atari. There's no reason that black cannot play Atari here and then connect, but black played directly down. For the time being, white has to do something on the right side of this stone. So white pushes out here, and black covers. Again, black has to be careful not to give up the stones in the center. So again, something like this, although locally it would be a gain for black. This is not only is it a ladder, but now it's a geta too. Like if black escapes, even if the ladder is good for black, white can capture with the net here. So losing these stones in the center would just be no good for black. So black has to play on the top. And if black can save those 2 stones, they will be the cutting stones, and then black can connect. So that's what happened in the game. This is a point where white has a chance to go after those 2 stones on the side, actually. So I'll show that. White can come here. This will capture those 2 stones. But we have a position where white has captured 3 black stones, but black's going to be able to squeeze. Like in the future, black can cover on the corner, and white will have to answer that. And so if black plays, like if we have white play something like this, all of these moves are going to be forcing. We can see that white has to continue playing here to win the semi-eye. Right. So it's more like this. And we can see actually this is a nakade shape. It's a dead shape. And so there's even some potential left for black to eventually be playing something like this to take away white's eye space. It's not in the near future. Wow. Eventually even something like this could happen.
Yeah.
And so it's just having black being able to squeeze from the corner like this is a bit painful for white. So at this point, although white can capture the 2 stones with this move, it's not really a very attractive option. So white continues moving out into the center. And now that black's stones in the center are alive, black connects underneath. And this is a really tough move. It sort of destroys white's shape here. I think white may actually done better to play this move straight out like this. But as a kind of it's a shape that is uneasy for white. White has to always be careful of this.
Yeah.
For the time being, it's okay because white can cut here and capture those stones. But white would like to actually have this exchange for this first, and then be able to play here, and then be able to play something like this. It would be much more comfortable for white. So that's why white played here. But this really is painful because white would like to be able to fill a liberty here, but then of course this would be an Atari.
Yes.
So it's perfect timing. White has to play this shape, which is it's a bad shape for white already.
Right.
Like it's leaving an open liberty here, which means black has a lot more freedom in the center of the board, and it's weak in eye shape. Like if white had the stone here, white would have much more eye shape. Only this is just too painful. So this shape is just very, very weak in eye shape. So it's already looking bad for white.
Wow.
And now finally black plays here. You can see that black was sort of avoiding playing that Atari, maybe because Master had some variations in mind that involved that geta that I was showing before. Like I was talking about a geta when black plays here, right? In this case, the marked stone here has something to do with the geta variation. As we see this developing, if the ladder does favor black, then white has a geta, but white does need that marked stone here to make the geta work. And so there is a very small possibility that this Atari underneath is going to be a bad move. I don't really see that happening in any of the variations they were playing. But that's sort of indicated in the way that Master is playing this later. Master is a very cautious player. Master generally tries to avoid danger. Usually you can see Master attacking instead of being diving into an opponent's moyo. So Master tries to keep away from variations that might be fatal or an immediate loss. And that probably has something to do with the way it calculates possibility for winning, because a variation that's a complete loss is probably a very bad percentage for winning, and probably has a very bad effect on the overall. And it's working, of course, for Master, because Master is always attacking side. And again, we see that the fact that this liberty here, the liberty, this marked liberty here is open, makes it very easy for Black to be playing on the outside now, because when White plays the cut here, Black can play the Tari on the outside. And all those cutting points, like there's 2 or 3 cutting points in Black's position, but since there's this open liberty here, White has no way of immediately punishing that. So White's surrounded. White has to start making eyes. So we see White's making a living shape here. And Black is sort of, for the time being, Black is sacrificing that group in the lower left, but it's not 100% dead yet. Like, Black still has the 3-3 point, and actually Black can still slide. Black can still slide here, which happens later in the game, to make a living shape. So it's not completely dead yet.
Not completely dead, but it's looking a little.
Master is willing to sacrifice this because for the time being, there's so much happening in the upper right that's important.
Bigger fish to fry.
And White would like to be able to jump into the upper right now, but it turns out the White group here is not 100% alive. Like, Black just connects here. White has to make an eye on the side. Looks like White's alive, but it's not, because Black has the ko at A. And Black's not going to do that until Black has a really good co-thread. But of course, White playing at A to stop that is a very slow move, and so it's going to be painful for White to put a stone in there.
Yeah.
Whereas Black can just choose a time to play it. Like, can just create some huge co-thread and then play it. And Black's only losing something like a limited amount of territory on the right side when Black loses the ko. So it's a Hanami ko, a flower viewing ko for Black. And so White doesn't want that to happen. So what happens in the game is White is going to use one move to make a completely alive shape. So White plays here. Just wanted to get the peep here. There's really no special meaning to that peep. It's just that White's unhappy that he has to make this living shape.
It's just the smallest group. It's just 2 eyes.
In fact, that peep on the second line is probably a bad exchange. But in any case, White's going to have to, basically, White has to do something on the right side, even though Black's played first here. Yeah. Because the right side is going to be really big. And White has to do something on the upper side, too. So at this point, already White's going to be very busy for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's pushing the boulder up from behind.
Yeah, so he splits the upper side first. It looks like White has to do that. And again, we're going to see Master playing very thickly in the center. And again, pressing here is what I'm calling Master's favorite move, because this is, in this position in the upper right, this is sort of the default move. There's some very rare positions where Black plays the taisha. And I talked about that in a different video.
You did.
There's one particular board position in which Black will play the taisha, the large knight's kake. But in any other position Master plays here, even if White has a stone here first, which actually is going to be another. We saw that in the Chinese opening, actually. The colors are reversed, but we saw Black playing this move after White plays the attachment in the corner. So it's like this. It's a shaped move that Master likes to play.
Have you been seeing that move showing up in pros games?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Only we're not really sure about it in the Chinese opening. And I'm going to talk about that in Game Master 48.
Okay.
Which is coming up fairly soon, because actually Master played that same variation in the Chinese opening that I've been talking about. And actually it was Park Jung-won.
Right.
Who had a pretty good game going. And so it looks like he had studied the variations and had a good, managed to refute it locally. So we have Master playing thickly here, just to get back to the game. And now Master starts to surround the right side. Now this is going to be too big if it becomes territory. Like it's just looking at the side area alone, it's going to be something like 40 points.
Yeah, it's huge. Lands are playing in there.
If we don't see any White territory yet. Like,
there's 2 points in the right-hand group.
There's 2 points. Well, if you count the captured stones, it's 3 points. Yeah, but the lower side is potentially white's territory. But you can see that knight's move on the upper. Let's just mark this knight's move is reducing it already. Yeah. So it's going to be hard for white to get up to 40 points. So white has to do something about the right side now. So that's what we're gonna see white start to do stuff on the right side now. And this is really very, very difficult for white. And again, we can see that black is playing very thickly. Black already has something like 20 points in the upper right corner and almost 10 points in the lower right corner. So black is pretty happy with territory also. And so it's looking bad for white already. But I'm going to go on for a while here because the fight on the right side is so interesting. Okay. And white still has to play on the upper side too. Like this is a point that white cannot allow black to play. Like you would sort of expect white to be playing something more on the right side like this. But if black plays, even if black just plays a conservative move like this, the upper side white group is in trouble now. So it's going to be a double attack. So white's really busy here, and black is just playing natural moves. And again, master didn't even try to kill this group. We'll see white actually got away with making a life here. Black is just surrounding from the center. White is really in trouble here, but so white's sort of trying to set up a co-position. So at this point, what white is doing is white is thinking of playing this co here, but white doesn't have a good co-threat for it yet. So white started by playing something on the right side, and black just finished off the center.
Jeez.
And so black has virtually allowed white to live here, and now white's alive. So this was very painful for white because black still has something close to 20 points in the upper right corner, and a very thick position in the center. Like we can see that white's cut off there, so that looks like it should be somewhere close to 20 points that black gets in the center.
But white got 6 more points on the right side in the middle, so.
Well, not really, but yeah. But of course, the point is that black has Sente to slide here. And this is going to be a live shape. So we'll just see black making a living shape here. We actually got to move 93. I might breeze through the rest of the moves, but I just want to go back for a bit to point out that I think the game was really, the turning point of the game came very early here. Like this move.
Right, yeah, you just don't like this move. You don't like this move at all.
That I don't like. I'm not really sure whether I want to do this one or this one. Right now, I'm thinking like if we assume this kind of variation, then white's got to play both sides.
Sure.
And if black continues here, now it's a lot easier for white to be doing something like this, because although black has a very thick shape in the center, white did get one extra move on the left side. So I'd be relatively happy with this variation. But in the game, white is just having all of the pain happening first and never had an opportunity to gain anything in the lower left area here. So this is where I think the game started to turn bad for white. Oh, sorry. I didn't want to go that far. Let's just get back to closer to the position I was talking about. And then on the right side here, this is already looking very desperate for white. White did manage to live, and it's sort of typical that master doesn't really try to go for the kill. Like I would try to kill that white group.
Absolutely.
But master just doesn't think it has to.
Can't be bothered.
When master, yeah, it doesn't have to kill it. We'll see white trying to kill this corner group. Well, at least making the moves, but black is already alive here with the this exchange and pushing here. We can see that black has a living shape. And well, white's alive too, so it's they're both alive. Another thing that I wanted to take a look at is this black group in the upper left.
Yeah.
After pressing on the 5-4 point D15 in this diagram.
Yeah.
Master seems to think that this group is very hard for white to attack.
Really?
Partly because black has this attachment in the corner sometimes that sometimes works.
Sure.
Or sliding into the corner. So white has to deal with that before attacking black. And the fact that black is pressing from above means that black has more room towards the center.
Right.
And so although black leaves this group, and master does quite often leave that group for a while, I haven't seen yet anyone successfully attacking it. Like it seems to be very difficult for white. Like white's playing another move to take away black's eyes here. And now black has no trouble making a living shape. Just because black started out being out into the center, it was relatively easy for black to live. Like it's already alive now. It's just alive. And so I've gone further into the game than I really needed to. Like white has something in the vicinity of 10 points with these three groups on the right and lower sides. And then white has less than 30 points on the left side. It looks more like 20, 25 points. And a few points on the upper side. So white has a max of about 40 points. Black has an easy 20 points in the upper right corner, something close to 10 points in the lower right corner, several Comey in the lower left corner, and then still has a bunch of territory in the center of the board.
It could be as much as 15, 20 points in the center, right?
Well, you know, we haven't even counted the area here, which I just marked. We haven't, when we call the upper right corner 20, if this area, if blacks, for instance, plays something like this, then it's going to be much more than 20 points.
Sure. Wow.
So there's that area, and then this area below here is more than 10 points. And then, of course, there's all those two stones that black took in the center, which is 2 or 3 points in itself. Then a few points in the upper side. So black's probably comfortably more than 10 points ahead. So the game is virtually over at this point. Wow. And of course, black has Sente. So let's just go. Why don't we just go through?
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Yeah. See how master wraps it up. Just allowing white to capture that. Well,
he does have to pay Comey, right?
He does have. Well, I counted the lower left corner as Comey.
As Comey. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I wasn't even counting that as black territory.
Okay.
And so black is just playing very solidly here, avoiding the ko. Let's see, how far did it go? There's just a few more moves. Actually fighting the ko here. It's interesting to see master actually fighting a ko. And like AlphaGo, when it was playing with Lee Sedol, really seemed to dislike playing a ko. But master has no problem playing a direct ko and doesn't make any mistakes playing a direct ko.
Right.
It plays some strange moves when playing an indirect ko. And so at this point, white gives up. It is a big black's territory in the center now. It's probably more than 20 points just in that area. So, and then more than 20 points in the upper right. So those add up to something like 42 3 points. And I was calling the lower left corner Comey. It's actually about 7 points. So it's a good enough for Comey. And 10 points in the lower right. So it's all adding up to 52, 54, 56, 57 points plus Comey. White has more than 40 points. So it's well above 10 points on the board. Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's actually, and I think you kind of alluded to this at the beginning, it's not a particularly dramatic game. I mean, white invades in 2 places and master simply lets white live while moving his profit around.
Well,
I mean,
I think that can be taken as a sign that master knows that it's winning already.
Yeah.
So the 2 points of the game are basically coming back to this move.
Yeah.
And also the reason I chose the game, of course, was because of this peep here.
Yeah.
Which happened twice. And it's a move that pros would not play usually. But some players have actually tried it out in special positions now, just because we've seen master do it. But it's still a move that sort of goes against the grain for professional human players. So this is, and of course it works for master. So it's something that we have to learn from.
Yeah, heard an interesting AI program. I mean, and it's a lot of people are talking about AI, and the chess program came up, the Go program came up, and what's interesting is that they're talking. I mean, and we've seen this actually. They talk about this in the AlphaGo film that humans get all kind of freaked out about AI because of a lot of the popular popular sort of projections of it, with evil eyes and so forth, but that AI is actually just sort of baked into a lot of things. And when I see the way that Master plays, it kind of reminds me of that, right? I mean, we, of course, as humans, want to see more dramatic fights, right? Try and kill that group, and but Master is just like, okay, just need to win by a half a point, so I'll just do this, do that.
Well, that's the task that was assigned to it. Like it's supposed to find the move that has a good percentage for winning.
Not the most dramatic one and most entertaining. Right, yeah.
So that's the one thing that it's looking for, and it tends to make it choose a simpler variation when it thinks it's winning.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, once again, a terrific commentary, a great choice of a game. Thank you, Michael Redmond. Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we will have one more, and then we'll be heading off to China to see some live Master. Can't wait. Thanks again, Michael.